Good morning, everyone. There's a quiet truth many people discover far too late in life. Success isn't something you chase, it's something you attract by becoming a certain kind of person. We often look for big solutions, instant breakthroughs, or revolutionary hacks, but more often than not, transformation begins with simple rules practiced consistently. So today, I want to share with you 8 rules that will completely change your life if you allow them to shape the way you think, act, and live. Rule 1: do hard things first. Your comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. We're wired to avoid discomfort, to push difficult tasks to later. But the truth is, life gets lighter when we face the heaviest things first. Whether it's the difficult conversation, the workout you're avoiding, or the idea you're too afraid to start, go straight toward it. Discipline is not punishment. It is choosing your future over your present mood. Rule 2V, be obsessively curious. Curiosity is the birthplace of growth. The people who rise, whether in business, education, or life, ask more questions than others. They don't seek to be right, they seek to understand. When you stop assuming and start learning again, your mind becomes a magnet for opportunities. Never stop being a student, even when you become a master. Rule 3, protect your circle. Who you spend time with will define your standards, your mindset, and your identity. If you surround yourself with critics, you'll fear expression. If you walk with the lazy, you'll learn to settle. But if you choose people who challenge you, elevate you, and believe in your potential more than you do, you'll begin to live beyond what you thought was possible. Audit your environment like your life depends on it, because it does. Rule 4, speak less. Listen more. We live in an age where everyone wants to talk, post, argue, and be heard, but wisdom lives in silence. The most powerful people in the room are often the quietest. They're not performing, they're learning, they're thinking, they're measuring. Listening is not passive, it is strategic. The world opens up when you begin to truly hear it. Rule 5, define success for yourself. Too many people climb ladders only to realize they were leaning against the wrong wall. If you don't define what success looks like for you, someone else will do it for you. And chances are it won't make you happy. Success isn't always a corner office or a million followers. It might be freedom, peace, or time with your family. The moment you define success for yourself, your direction becomes clear and comparisons begin to fade. Rule 6, delay pleasure for purpose. Instant gratification is the enemy of long-term achievement. Every time you choose comfort over purpose, you trade potential for pleasure. Build habits that reward your future self. Read the book instead of watching the reel. Invest instead of spend. Train instead of complain. A meaningful life is built on small moments of discipline repeated consistently. Rule 7, show up every day, especially when you don't feel like it. There will be days you don't feel motivated. That's normal. But what separates winners from wishers is the ability to show up when it's inconvenient. Momentum builds through consistency, not emotion. If you only move when you feel like it, you'll never get far. But if you learn to move regardless, you'll be unstoppable. Rule 8, lead with value, not ego. The most magnetic people in the world are those who give more than they take. Don't just chase success. Become someone who contributes. Whether in your career, relationships, or community, ask, how can I serve? The world is built on value exchange, and the most successful people are those who give the most without expectation. Make that your legacy. These aren't just rules. They're foundations. They are patterns of behavior, choices of character, and anchors for a meaningful life. And while they may sound simple, simplicity doesn't mean easy, but it does mean possible. And it starts with a decision to stop waiting, a decision to stop blaming, a decision to start building, one rule at a time. Thank you. Fekotis OFTSP Chin. Growth begins when you consistently step out of your comfort zone and face hard tasks first. Curiosity and lifelong learning are powerful drivers of personal and professional transformation. Your environment and the people you surround yourself with will shape your identity and trajectory. True success is self-defined, purpose-driven, and built on consistent habits, not fleeting motivation. Value-driven action and selfless contribution are the foundations of a meaningful and lasting legacy. Curiosity and lifelong learning are powerful drivers of personal and professional transformation. At first glance, curiosity might seem like a soft trait, something associated with children, daydreamers, or philosophers. But in reality, it is one of the most practical and impactful mindsets a person can develop. It's not just about asking questions for the sake of asking. It's about developing a mindset that challenges assumptions, seeks truth, and adapts to new realities. In a world where industries evolve overnight and information doubles faster than ever before, curiosity is no longer optional. It's essential. Think about the people who innovate, the people who lead change, the people who remain relevant even after decades in the same field. They all share one thing in common: an insatiable hunger to learn. They ask questions no one else is asking. They're not satisfied with how it's always been done. They dig deeper, not to impress anyone, but because they genuinely want to understand. Curiosity leads you into new territories, into books, podcasts, conversations, and experiences that expand your thinking. And when your thinking expands, your world expands with it. We often associate intelligence with knowing the answers, but true intelligence is reflected in the depth of the questions we ask. Curiosity doesn't always come naturally, especially in systems that reward quick answers and punish uncertainty. Schools teach us to memorize, workplaces often prioritize efficiency over exploration, and society glorifies confidence even when it's hollow. But the real power lies in those who are willing to say, I don't know, but I want to find out. That phrase may seem small, but it's the root of all learning. It's where innovation starts. It's where growth begins. Curiosity also builds humility. When you approach life with curiosity, you begin to understand how much you don't know. That realization doesn't shrink you. It makes you wiser. It prevents arrogance. It softens judgment. And it allows you to connect with others more deeply. You stop seeing people as categories and start seeing them as individuals with complex experience worth exploring. Curiosity leads to empathy. When you ask, why does this person think this way? Or what don't I understand about their perspective? You open the door to dialogue instead of division. And that ability to seek understanding rather than assume is one of the most valuable skills in both leadership and life. In the workplace, curious people are often the ones who drive innovation. They challenge outdated systems, ask better questions in meetings, and aren't afraid to raise a hand when something doesn't make sense. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. Companies don't grow because people follow the manual. They grow because someone asked, is there a better way? When curiosity becomes part of your identity, it becomes easier to take risks. You stop fearing failure because you see it as part of the learning process. You stop seeing challenges as threats and start seeing them as opportunities to stretch. Even outside of professional settings, curiosity is what keeps relationships strong. Think about it. Relationships decay when people stop being curious about each other, when they assume they already know everything there is to know. But when you stay curious, when you keep asking, keep listening, keep learning, you deepen the connection. You learn what someone really cares about, how they've changed, and what they need. Curiosity keeps love alive, friendships vibrant, and communities united. In today's world, where it's easy to become overwhelmed by complexity, curiosity can be your compass. It helps you navigate change not with fear, but with interest. It drives you to explore before you judge, to learn before you lead, and to understand before you act. Lifelong learners don't just adapt better, they thrive. They reinvent themselves, pivot when needed, and stay ahead of the curve because they're always gathering insights, not clinging to past successes. Curiosity isn't about having the time, it's about creating the habit. You can be curious on your commute, during a walk, in a conversation, or while reading just one page a day. You don't need a PhD to be a learner. You need the humility to admit you haven't arrived and the drive to keep exploring. So whether it's learning a new skill, understanding a different culture, diving into an unfamiliar subject, or just asking deeper questions, you build the muscle of curiosity by using it. And the more you use it, the more powerful it becomes. Curiosity transforms how you think, how you connect, and ultimately, how far you go. Your environment and the people you surround yourself with will shape your identity and trajectory. This is one of the most overlooked truths in personal development, yet one of the most powerful. We like to believe that we are independent thinkers, fully in control of our choices and direction. But in reality, we are deeply influenced, often unconsciously, by the attitudes, habits, and standards of the people around us. Whether you like it or not, your circle either pulls you forward or holds you back. It's not just a matter of friendship or social interaction. It's about alignment, energy, and momentum. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, who avoid responsibility, who make excuses, then over time you will start to normalize those behaviors, even if you don't realize it. The human brain seeks belonging more than logic. It looks for patterns to mimic, and when the norm around you is mediocrity or negativity, your subconscious begins to accept that as a baseline. You might still have goals, but your ambition will quietly erode. You might still believe in discipline, but it won't feel urgent. You won't notice the decline at first. It will be subtle. But eventually, you'll wake up wondering why you feel stuck, uninspired, or off track more often than not. The answer is in your environment. On the other hand, when you place yourself among people who have high standards, people who challenge you, who pursue excellence, who talk about ideas rather than gossip, you begin to rise. Not because they push you, but because they remind you of who you could be. Their presence elevates you. You start to match their energy, match their mindset, and stretch your own limits. It becomes normal to take action. It becomes expected to think critically, to plan ahead, to take ownership. These people don't let you stay small. They reflect your potential back to you until you start believing in it yourself. The truth is, you become like the people you spend the most time with. That's not motivational language. It's neuroscience. We are wired to adapt. That's how we survive, and that's also how we evolve. But this adaptation can work for or against you. If you surround yourself with people who are passive, who are stuck in the past, who constantly talk about what they could have done, you'll be influenced by their stagnation. But if you surround yourself with people who are working on themselves, learning, building, failing forward, you will naturally adopt that mindset. You will pick up their habits, their language, and their drive, not because you're copying them, but because it becomes your new normal. This is why choosing your circle is not a casual decision. It is a strategic one. It doesn't mean cutting people out for not being perfect. It means being intentional about who gets the most access to your time, energy, and mind space. You can still love people without letting them shape your mindset. You can be kind without allowing their fears to become yours. Sometimes the most important boundary is emotional, not physical. You protect your mindset by choosing who gets to influence it. In the professional world, your environment can either ignite your ambition or suffocate it. Join a team where mediocrity is tolerated, and soon your best effort will feel like too much. But if you're part of a culture that values growth, feedback, and purpose, you'll find yourself operating at a higher level just to keep up. This isn't about comparison, it's about immersion. Being in an environment that demands excellence trains you to rise to it even on your worst days. In personal life, the same principle applies. Relationships that bring out your worst, your laziness, your bitterness, your fear, may feel familiar, but they're dangerous. They lock you in emotional loops that stop you from evolving. Relationships that bring out your best, your courage, your creativity, your compassion, may feel uncomfortable at first, but they are necessary. They force you to grow, and growth is rarely comfortable. But it's always worth it. None of this means that you need to be surrounded by perfect people. It means you need people who are growing, people who are striving for something bigger than themselves, people who want more from life and are willing to do the work to get there. Their energy becomes your fuel. Their example becomes your roadmap. Their belief becomes your mirror. You don't rise alone. You rise with the help of the people who challenge you to rise. That's why your circle is your strategy. The right environment doesn't just support your progress, it accelerates it. And the wrong one doesn't just slow you down, it silently pulls you backwards. When you choose your circle with purpose, you take control of your direction. You stop drifting and start designing the life you want, one relationship at a time. True success is self-defined, purpose-driven, and built on consistent habits, not fleeting motivation. Too often, we get caught in the noise of external expectations. Society sells a very specific image of success: the big house, the luxury car, the powerful title, the curated life on social media. It's an image shaped by comparison, fueled by consumerism, and reinforced by cultural norms that value appearance over authenticity. But chasing this external version of success can lead people to burnout, emptiness, and confusion, even when they appear to have it all. What's missing isn't achievement, it's alignment. Real success isn't about how much you accumulate, it's about how closely your life reflects what truly matters to you. When you don't define success for yourself, you end up adopting someone else's definition by default. And that's dangerous. Because what inspires one person may drain another. What fulfills one may bore another. There is no one-size-fits-all formula. Success that isn't personal is performative. It becomes a show, an act you put on to gain approval, to feel worthy, or to avoid judgment. But eventually the mask gets heavy. And when it slips, what's left is the realization that the ladder you've been climbing might be leaning against the wrong wall. Defining success for yourself requires brutal honesty. It demands that you tune out the noise and ask difficult questions. What do I value most? What kind of life do I want to live? What am I willing to sacrifice? And what am I not? These questions don't have easy answers, but they lead you to clarity. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. When you're clear on your version of success, you stop running races that don't belong to you. You stop saying yes to every opportunity just because it looks impressive. You start choosing paths that align with your principles, not just your ambitions. Purpose is the compass that gives direction to your definition of success. Without it, even your wins will feel hollow. Purpose isn't always grand or dramatic. It's often quiet and deeply personal. It might be serving your community, raising your children with intention, solving a problem that once hurt you, or simply becoming someone your younger self would be proud of. Purpose gives meaning to your goals. It reminds you why you started and keeps you grounded when things get hard. It turns your work into a mission, your routine into a ritual, and your life into a legacy. But defining success and finding purpose aren't enough. They need structure to become real. That's where habits come in. Motivation is powerful, but it's temporary. It comes and goes. If you rely on motivation to take action, your progress will always be inconsistent. But if you build systems, daily actions rooted in your values, you create momentum. Habits are quiet. They don't get attention like big wins do. But they are the foundation everything else stands on. You don't need to be extraordinary every day. You just need to be consistent. Success is less about intensity and more about continuity. The person who writes 1 page every day will finish a book before the person who writes 20 pages only when they feel inspired. Consistency builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce your identity. You start to believe that you are someone who does what they say, someone who finishes what they start. That belief creates self-respect, and self-respect fuels progress. You become more resilient because you don't rely on fleeting energy. You operate from commitment, not convenience. That's what separates those who grow steadily from those who burn out in sprints. When your habits are rooted in purpose and align with your personal definition of success, you become unstoppable, not because everything goes smoothly, but because you have a framework that guides you through setbacks. Life will always be uncertain. There will be detours, delays, and disappointments. But when you know where you're going and why it matters, you won't be easily thrown off course. You might slow down, but you won't stop. You might fall, but you'll rise with direction. True success isn't loud. It's not always glamorous. It's often found in the quiet moments. Waking up early to work on your craft, saying no to distractions, having the courage to walk away from what doesn't feel right. It's the inner peace that comes from knowing you're living on your terms, not performing for validation. It's not a destination. It's a way of living built step by step, decision by decision, habit by habit. And once you understand that, success stops being something you chase and becomes something you live. Value-driven action and selfless contribution are the foundations of a meaningful and lasting legacy. In a world that constantly promotes self-interest, recognition, and personal gain, it's easy to fall into the trap of asking, what can I get, rather than what can I give? But the truth is, real impact doesn't come from what you take, it comes from what you offer. The people who are remembered, respected, and admired the most are not those who accumulated the most wealth or received the loudest applause. They are those who led with value, who gave more than they were expected to, who showed up not for ego but for service. The mindset of contribution shifts everything. When you focus on creating value, whether in your work, relationships, or community, you stop measuring your worth by comparison. You no longer feel the pressure to outdo others. Instead, you start asking better questions. How can I help? How can I solve a problem? How can I leave things better than I found them? These questions push you to think beyond yourself. They stretch your capacity for empathy, for creativity, and for leadership. And the irony is, when you stop chasing success for its own sake and begin offering value, success begins to follow you. People are drawn to those who make their lives better. Leading with value doesn't require perfection or status. It requires intention. Anyone in any role can lead with value. A teacher who goes beyond the curriculum to reach a struggling student. A team member who helps others without seeking credit. A friend who listens without trying to fix. A business that puts long-term relationships over short-term profits. These are small acts that often go unnoticed, but over time they build trust, respect, and influence. They create reputations that cannot be bought and legacies that cannot be faked. Ego, on the other hand, demands attention. It seeks validation. It asks, what do I deserve? Ego turns relationships into transactions and work into performance. It can achieve results, but those results are fragile. Because ego is easily threatened, it avoids feedback, resents the success of others, and struggles to collaborate. When ego leads, value takes a back seat. And when value disappears, so does the depth of your impact. People may work with you, but they won't trust you. They may follow you, but they won't be loyal. They may admire your skills, but not your character. True contribution requires the humility to serve without always being seen. It means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It means showing up with consistency, not just when it's convenient. It's about giving your best effort even when you don't get the reward you hoped for. Because contribution isn't transactional, it's transformational. It transforms the giver as much as the receiver. It expands your sense of purpose. It builds emotional resilience. And it helps you grow into someone who is not just successful, but significant. In professional environments, those who consistently create value without needing constant praise become indispensable. They are the ones people go to for advice, for solutions, and for collaboration. They might not always be the loudest in the room, but their presence is always felt. Their influence doesn't come from a title, it comes from trust. And trust is earned through contribution. The same applies to leadership. The best leaders are not those who control the most, but those who empower the most. They lead with service, not status. They build others up. They create environments where others can thrive. That's how they leave a legacy that lasts long after they're gone. In your personal life, value-driven action deepens your relationships. When you focus on what you can give attention, care, time, encouragement, you strengthen the bonds that matter most. Relationships that are built on mutual contribution, rather than keeping score, are the ones that endure. They weather storms because they are built on shared growth, not competition or ego. And the fulfillment you feel from giving authentically is far greater than any recognition you could receive. The idea is simply, when you focus on being useful rather than being impressive, you create something lasting. You move from success to significance. You stop living just for outcomes and start living for impact. That impact might not always be visible immediately, but it echoes far beyond what you can measure. A kind word today might shape someone's confidence for years. A small gesture might restore someone's hope. A decision to do the right thing might inspire others to do the same. What you give becomes part of who you are. And the more you lead with value and contribute selflessly, the more you become a person not just of success, but of substance. In the end, your legacy won't be measured by how high you rose, but by how many others you lifted along the way. The path to transformation isn't found in grand gestures or once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. It's found in the simple, consistent practice of principles that elevate who you are and how you live. These 8 rules aren't shortcuts. They are anchors. They ground you in self-awareness, discipline, purpose, and contribution. They challenge you to move beyond passive existence into intentional growth. When you choose to face hard things first, stay relentlessly curious, protect your environment, define your own success, act from value instead of ego, and show up consistently even when it's hard, you begin to shape a life that's not just successful by the world's standards, but deeply meaningful by your own. Change doesn't happen by chance. It happens by decision. And when you commit to these rules, not just once but daily, you stop reacting to life and start leading it.